Okay, welcome back to the channel and another video on this barn conversion garage build on what is an absolutely stunning day. It's so bright and sunny outside that I've had to move in here just to film this because it's just too bright and I was squinting all the time. But at the end of the last video, we got the hardcore in the floor, got that trench rammer to smash up all the rocks and compact it, and then use the whacker plate to basically level everything out. And it's worked really well. This floor is very solid now. In fact, I think in areas it's more solid than it was before, because as it's drying out, it seems to be almost going off like concrete in places. So the next job now is going to be to get this block flooring in. Now, I am completely out of my comfort zone on this. I've never ever done this before. I have watched a couple of videos, obviously, to try and get some ideas on how to do it. But there seems to be so many different ways that people are doing this. But I'll show you how I'm going to do it and what I've got to do it. Now I'm hoping to get this mostly finished. What I probably won't get this entrance completely finished because I need to get drains in. So I'm going to start at the back of the garage and work my way forwards, just so that I can find out how much this level will change as I'm compacting it. And then that way I can work out where the drains are going to go in the front. Now, I get that I'm probably doing this wrong, and there's going to be people screaming at the screen saying should be doing this, should be doing that, but like I said, never done it before. I'm going to give it a go and see how we get on. So I'll show you what we've got to do the job, and we'll get on with the video. Okay, so you can see how much this floor has dried out, and there's the odd patch. Basically there's a leak in the roof just here. There's another one just over there, so every time it rains it leaks. There's a wet patch there as well. Now this corner is still wet because if you look at the wall, in fact you can see through the wall, there's a gap in that between those blocks. But the ground level outside is actually higher than the floor level inside by quite a bit. In fact, it comes up to that third block up there. So all that needs to be dug out outside, and then that will help drain away and help dry this off. This wall has dried out immensely because we've moved a lot of that hardcore outside, and I'll show you in a minute just how much of that has gone. So the first thing we're going to do in here is just run over there with that whacker plate again, just to any final bits that are sticking up, and just level any bits and pieces out. And then we can start getting the floor laid. So you can see on the wall where the mark was, where this pile of hardcore was, and most of that now is in the garage. So there is a bit left out here, but it took a lot more in that garage than I anticipated, and a lot of that is down to that trench rammer actually just compacting things so much more. This is what I'm going to be using to bed the blocks onto. Now I picked this up yesterday, and this is basically why I bought this trailer. But so I picked this up. It's a lot cheaper to buy loose, and obviously if you pick it up yourself you haven't got a delivery charge, so it works out a lot cheaper. But this is classed as double washed sand, and not 100% sure. To me it looks like stone dust, but this is basically what they recommended. And I know there's a lot of different opinions now with stone dust and sand and chippings, but got to remember that this is indoors, so it's not going to hold much water, because you know the only real water that's going to get in there once this is watertight is basically a wet car when it comes in from the rain. But most of the time there's going to be no water in here, so waterlogging isn't going to be an issue. And this stuff was cheap. I think it's £21 a ton, and there's about 2.3 tons here. So this is what I'm going to be laying the blocks on, and we need to just get it in and start leveling it out. Okay, so the way I'm going to get this sand level is by using this electrical conduit that I picked up. So this is 25mm galvanized steel pipe, and it's ideal for what I need. I'll bed that down on 5mm of sand just to get it 100% level, and then fill it up with sand and use the piece of wood there just to grade it all back. And that will give us an area then to start putting blocks onto. We'll take the pipes out, fill up the bit with sand, and then put the blocks in. Now once I've got a big enough area done, I'll be able to start whacking it down with the whacker plate and see how much it sinks. And this will give me my final level, basically, to set the drains for the entrance. Now the drain in the entrance needs to be slightly lower than the floor of the garage, because obviously you don't want water flowing back. and the blocks will stop short of the drain, and then there will be a concrete slope going into the drain. But I don't want it to be very much of a slope. Obviously the cars are quite low, I need to get them in and out, so you know, I'm only talking an inch at the most, but I need that drain to be slightly lower. So once that's done, once we know all the levels, we'll be able to get this floor finished. My only concern at the moment are these areas where the subbase is more open than others. So this is quite open here, whereas this bit here is quite dense. You can see there's no gaps here at all, but there is here. Now, because we haven't got that much sand as a level, it's only 30 mil, I'm assuming that obviously some of the sand will fall in between these rocks, but it won't here. So this area will probably compact more than this area. So what I want to do first is just go around and fill in all these bits and pieces with a bit of sand, go back over it with the whacker plate and get it all to the same sort of grade. So that'll be the first job. Okay, so I've joined 2 lengths of this conduit together using the couplers that came with it, and that's given me a 6 meter piece of pipe. I'm actually going to start from the middle. I'm not going to start from that end, because if I do start from that end, then I have to get over the sand in order to bring the blocks back. Whereas if I start here, once this piece is done, I can then work onto it to the back and then bring it round into the corner. I think that's going to be the best way to do it. Ideally, I would start at the doorway, but like I said before, because I'm not 100% sure with the levels, I think I'm going to start in the middle. Also, this section in the middle is very slightly higher than the rest of it, so start at the highest point, and then everything else will be leveled up to it. So the first thing I need to do is get this pipe leveled in. Like I said, we'll put some sand underneath it, tap it down, get it 100%, and then get one of the smaller pipes alongside it. Now I've got that piece of wood over there. Now, I've seen a lot of people use the level to do this, but to be honest, I don't want to ruin the edge of the level. But if I put that on there, you can see how straight this piece of wood is. Yeah, you see how there's no gaps at all on that. So it's a nice straight piece of wood. It's 7 foot long, so I'll be able to do a chunk of this. So what I'll do is I'll set one pipe up that side, get that first bit in. The second pipe then will go this side, and then we'll start doing the second bit. And that will give us a fairly big area to start with. Then we'll work it back to the wall, work it to the back of the garage, and then concentrate on doing the entrance. Okay, so I've made a start without you, unfortunately. I thought this was on record, but it was on pause, so we missed the first bit. But all I did was put that first pipe in with sand underneath it, leveled it up, and then leveled the other pipe to it. Just slightly under 7 foot. I went round and marked roughly where I need the pipes to be. Just slightly under 7 foot, because that's a 7 foot bit of wood, and then it can sit on the pipes and just grade this back. So just going to do a bit more of this, and then we can start bringing some blocks in. We got a couple of square meters down yesterday before the batteries ran out on the camera, and I had to go to work anyway. So today we're just going to be repeating that, go do the next bit over, and just plod on with it. I'll put you on time lapse and see how far we get. I think I was in danger of making the world's longest time lapse there, but things are going okay. It's a bit slow going, but then, you know, I'm doing this all on my own, so it's bound to be, really. It's a lot of work. The next bit I want to do now is just add some of this sand. So this is kiln dried sand. It's very fine. It's very dry, obviously. And what that will do is basically filter in between all the blocks. As I go over it then with the whacker plate will keep them all to the same level, and it'll help just even out all the blocks and then lock them into place with that sand. This will give us our final level. So if you go back to our yardstick that we were using, you can see here that it needs to go down slightly. That's because these blocks haven't been walked on being this close to the pillar. But when you move around, you can see that it has actually moved down quite a bit already, which is a little bit worrying because I don't want it to sink too much lower than this. But we'll put the sand on, go over with the whacker plate and get our final level. Once we have our final level, we'll be able to sort out the entrance. So in the entrance, I'm going to build a concrete plinth. This will do a couple of things. Basically, it will lock all the blocks into place. It'll give somewhere for the rain to run off for the doors, and it'll have a slight grade on it so that the rain runs away from the door, not towards it. Okay, so that's had the desired effect and has locked all these in place, and it's absolutely solid, and it's dropped it by about 5 millimeters in most places. So again, just under the line there, same there, yeah, just a little bit over that one, but generally speaking, it's pretty good all round now. So it's fairly even if I get out of the way of the line. So what I can do now is actually set the concrete for the doorway at that level. So I've already started digging the doorway out. So I've dug this piece out in the doorway, and what I'm going to do now is actually shutter that and put a piece of concrete in here. So the doors are actually going to hang obviously on the steels, and I want the water that's going to hit the door to drip down onto the concrete and then run into the gutter. So there will be an eco drain, I think it's called, going across the doorway. But that will have to be slightly further out because the wall isn't straight, and I still need to underpin the other side of that wall. So I'm going to push that out slightly. So what I'm going to do first of all is just build a concrete plinth in here. So I need to put some shuttering in, mix some concrete, get that in. Once that's set, I'll be able to put the rest of these blocks in and basically take it up to the concrete. Now I want the concrete to be very slightly lower than the block level, and it will have a slight grade going out, but it won't be any very much. I just don't want the water to run back in. So that'll be the next bit. So another gorgeous sunny day. Unfortunately not great for working in, but I am in the shade now, so it was a bit brutal this morning. So I've got the forms done for the concrete for this plinth in the doorway. So what I've done is this side is going to be 10 millimeters higher than that side, which doesn't sound like very much, but over that distance of 140 millimeters should give us more than enough fall. I've tied the rebar in so it's welded to that piece of rebar that was in the concrete when I did the underpinning, and it's also welded to that bolt that we put into the steel. So that's made that very solid this side. On the other end, I've drilled into the concrete because there wasn't anything there to tie into. So I've drilled into that, and that's all tied together. Then the cross pieces are drilled through the wood, which is going to make taking this form off a pain, but it will give us something to attach the next piece onto. Now, because this wall is so crooked, I'm not really sure how well you can see that on the video. And it still needs underpinning, so I'm going to have to dig all this out down here and put the drain slightly further away from the wall. My initial thought was to put it right up against the wall, but it will have to come a couple of inches away. So once I remove this form, it'll give us plenty of room for that acre drain to go in there. So the next job now will be to fill this with concrete. So we'll get that done and bring it back. So that's the concrete all in, and it went okay actually. There's not a lot of mixing, but it is going off pretty quick. So I've run the trowel over it quickly just to level it out. But I'll probably come back in another half an hour or so and give it a final float, and possibly run the brush over it just to give it a bit more grip. But then hopefully that'll be it for today. And then tomorrow I'll come and take the forms off. But I won't have much time to do much else tomorrow, so I'll get the forms off, but it'll give it another day to breathe and dry out a bit. And then the following day, we'll be able to come back in, get the rest of these blocks laid in, and then that'll be the floor pretty much finished, other than the cuts and the final sanding, etc. So we're nearly there on this, and I'm really pleased with it. So it's super bright out here again this morning, so much so I can barely see the screen, although it is cloudy and it is due to rain later. I managed to get the forms off yesterday. They were really tight around these pins. I think the wood possibly swelled slightly with the dampness of the concrete, but managed to get them off without doing too much damage. A little bit on the end there, but nothing major. So these pins are tied into the rebar that goes across, and that rebar is tied into the steel that side and the concrete, and to the concrete on the other side. The reason for these pins is when I come to do the eco drain, I'll be able to, again, concrete it in and tie it into this and make it all one unit and very, very strong. But really happy with the way this came out. I'm just going to cover these pins over now with something and then grade this back in. It looks quite high here, but obviously I dug it all out. The outside does need lowering slightly, and it will be done over time, but at the moment I just need to get the garage done. So this is going to be basically the next phase after the garage is finished. So I'm going to cover the pins over, grade this back, and then make a start on getting this floor blocks just finally put in. So I found these lengths of heat shrink in the garage, and I'm going to just put these over the seals as they're going to be buried in the ground for a little while. And obviously the water's going to pool in here, so I'm going to just protect them as much as I can. I push that up to the concrete, and then I'll come back with the heat gun and just shrink them on and then bury them in the ground. So I've got all this concrete backfilled now and tamped in, leveled out, nice and solid, nice and level. So the next job now will be to get the sand in, level that out, and get the blocks in. I won't bother filming this because obviously you've already had a fair bit of time lapse of that, but I'll bring you back once they're in and we can start finishing off the actual floor itself. So that's the last of the full blocks fitted into this entrance. Everything else now needs a cut or a trim. So I've made a start on this wall and put all the half blocks in, and to do that I've used this block splitter that Chester's about to give us a demonstration of. Or maybe not. But this is an ideal tool for doing half cuts, basically, because it's quite it's clean and quick. It's not the most accurate cutter in the world, but it causes a lot less mess. I do have a 9-inch angle grinder with a diamond blade, and that's great for cutting these, but it does create a lot of dust and a lot of mess. So for all the half blocks, I'm going to use this, and then for any trimming or more intricate cuts, I'll use the diamond blade. So I thought I'd measured this fairly accurately, but unfortunately, although the blocks fit in nicely there, they're very, very tight this end. And it's only very slightly out, but unfortunately I did try and move it, and which has caused a bit of damage to the concrete there, but it just wasn't having it. So I am going to have to trim this edge here, but that's not really an issue. Also, the blocks are basically 10 mil higher now than the concrete, so I'm going to trim the edge of the block just to help with it tilting into the concrete, and that should help things as well. So I'll show you the block splitter and how that works, and then I'll get this done, and then we'll get on to the sanding and the final finish of the floor. Okay, so as you can see, although it has cut the block in half, it's not a perfectly straight cut. And for most situations, that's fine. The odd situation, you do need to trim them if they cut. I mean, this one is taking the edge off it, so it's a little bit untidy. That one, obviously, has got a little bit of an edge on it. This one, pretty good. So overall, a lot quicker and easier than using the angle grinder because it's a lot less messy. But the angle grinder definitely has its place as well. So the difference in the cut between the block splitter and the angle grinder is night and day. This is completely smooth, nice and straight, and really, it's easy to do. It's just very dusty, very messy. Also with this one, I've given it a slight chamfer, and the reason for that is to allow for this exit. So when I put that there, the chamfer will go across here, and then when this bed's down, it's almost a perfect match for that. When we sand it then, it'll all help just grade it into that concrete plinth. So all the blocks along this edge will need chamfering. So that'll be all the long ones and all the half cuts and all the length of edge ones. So I'll get all that done, and then I'll bring you back when we do the sanding. So that's all the blocks now cut in place, and the only thing left to do basically is there's a couple of little gaps around this steel post where the bits of stone would have been too small to put in there, or the bits of brick rather. So I'm going to fill that with a bit of sand and cement, just a dry mix. And then along this wall, I've got the same issue, basically where the line wasn't quite straight. It's come away from the wall here slightly. So again, I'm just going to fill that with a dry mix of sand and cement. Then I'm going to give this a quick brush all over, give it a blowout, and then put the sand on and run over it, and we're almost done. So a huge thanks to Cherie there for giving me a hand to sweep the sand in. Unfortunately, we were 1 bag short, probably 2 bags realistically, because it needs to go back over this again. But that is effectively the floor finished now. This is all compacted, it's all level, it's actually really solid now. So we're going to grab another bag of sand, just do that bit that we missed, and then go over it all over again with another bag, just to fill in the gaps, because the sand settles as you go over it with the whacker plate. But that is the floor effectively finished, and I'm really, really pleased with the result. It's nice and flat, it's super solid. So that's going to be about it for this video. Please remember to like and subscribe. The next videos now are either going to be the doors or getting on and sorting out this roof, which obviously is a bit of a mess. You can just see how rotten this wood is up here. And I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to get this done, but tune in for the next video to find out. And thanks for watching. I'll see you again shortly.